as well as seeing. What was that? Okay. As well as seeing if there's any additional document requests at this time. And then we will have a presentation from our city manager about our video and live options. And then hopefully we will have enough time to circle back around and approve some stuff for our agenda here in, what is that, 3 weeks, technically. Yeah. So, okay. And then with that, I believe, so we're going to do approval of minutes. Is there any corrections that anyone feels needs to be made to the minutes?
Hi.
Anyone on the phone think that there needs to be corrections made to the minutes?
I would, this is Commissioner Schneider. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to put forward the idea that we don't have some commissioners named and some not named. In the last minutes, there were some comments that, a commissioner said X, and then some other commissioners were named. I think we should all be named.
Okay. And I agree with that, Jeffrey.
Yes. So just a point on that is our intention to name as many as we had. It was just only a matter of note taking, and where the conversation didn't allow us to capture those names is where we didn't identify someone. So that was the only reason someone wasn't identified.
All right, and then I'm going to actually defer to the city attorney. Is that something that we need to vote on, or since it was clarified by Jeffrey, are we good to continue?
Chair Pryor, it sounds like you are already doing that. It's just that if someone does not identify their name, it's hard to track it, especially by audio.
Okay, perfect. Well, then if there are no other comments regarding the minutes, then they are approved and we can move forward. No, we don't. No, I got that approved with him. Okay, and then next, so we have a couple of additional rules that I would like to bring up just to help our meetings run a little bit smoother. And so we will vote on each individual one and not try to package them together. So the first one that I would like to propose is, I apologize, I'm having to look off of a laptop here. Thank you. That every speaker must be recognized before speaking. I just think that that'll be a really good way to keep us from talking over each other. So I would like to make a motion for that. All right. And then are there any comments, questions, or concerns regarding that? No? Okay.
Sorry, I would just ask, how do we ask, what's the proper procedure?
Yeah, you guys have the option to be able to raise your hand on the screen, correct? There should be a button for that. Okay. Then for you guys, yeah, that's what we'll do. And then for those here, we'll do the same thing, is raise hands.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Then with that, let's take a vote. Let me repeat it, excuse me. Those who are in favor of recognizing speakers before they can speak, please raise your hand. Those who oppose it, please raise your hand. All right, it looks like it passes with majority vote. Excellent. All right, the next rule that I would like to bring forward is we limit everyone to speaking twice per agenda item. That way everything is concise and there's not a whole lot of banter back and forth. So I would like to make a motion for that. All right, I guess that one will not move forward.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said you were making the motion.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, or second, there we go. All right, so then I'll open up discussion for that item as well. Yes, Sarah?
Thank you. Can we have some clarification or exceptions for clarifications? If somebody needs a quick clarification, just to be like, hey,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so this is not including the need for clarifications or if someone asks you a question directly.
I have a question.
Yes, Mike?
How are you going to enforce it?
I'm just going to have to. I got this little guy.
Well, I don't particularly think it's after 2 meetings. I don't get the feeling that that's necessary. I mean, if there's subjects where some people choose to speak more or have other questions, I think it's really limiting.
Mhm.
And I just don't, to me, it seems like it's a solution in search of a problem, unless we have these long extended discussions where people are dominating the conversations, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like that's been the case. It seems like completely unnecessary and stifling of communication.
Okay. Yes, Ron?
All right, that may be true. I don't see any harm in it. I think that it would.
Will you turn your mic on, please? Sorry.
It would promote participation by everybody to not have a couple of people dominating the discussion.
Comments, questions? Yes, Pat. And turn on your mic button, please. Thank you.
There. I actually prefer to listen to discussions and find it helpful depending on the subject matter.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any revisions to the rule, we can still vote on it, and then if it doesn't pass, obviously we won't adopt it. So those who are in favor of limiting people to speaking twice per item, that's excluding answering direct questions, please raise your hand.
Commissioner Pryor, I have my hand raised for discussion and it wasn't recognized.
Yes, Catherine?
Yeah, I just, some of the agenda items like tonight has several bullet points. Would each bullet point be considered one agenda item?
That is a good point. Let's do this. Let's table this rule for another day, and we'll come back to it, and I'll think it through a little bit better, okay?
Thank you.
All right, and then since we're going to table that item, the last one is that we keep public comment limited to those who live in Loveland. So I'm going to make a motion for that. Do I have a second? Second, okay. And now I'll open up the floor for comments, questions, concerns. Yes, Tara?
Does it count if they did live in Loveland? Because I feel like that's really loud. Like if they had an experience that would be relevant to our board, but maybe they moved to Greeley or to Denver, like I feel like their voice should still be heard.
I think in the event of something, a very specific item like that, we can maybe as a group make an exception. But I just don't foresee us having to deal with that a lot. But I do hear what you're saying. And yes, if it is something that can add, depth to the conversation, I'm sure that we can. Yes. Actually, hold on one second. I believe, Catherine, you had your hand up first.
I apologize. I will lower my hand now.
Okay. Gary and then Lori.
Once again, how do you propose that we screen calls and enforce that?
So the whole thing is we just have to hope that people are trustful with us. I mean, it is kind of counterproductive to lie to the Trust Commission. So the whole hope is that people will just recognize, hey, I live in Illinois or I live in California, Miami, wherever, and, I can listen. Lori?
Yeah, I wonder if this is another one of those problems or solutions in search of a problem. I can't see the room tonight, obviously, because I'm not there, but it doesn't look like there's a ton of people in chambers to talk. We've been having just a few public commenters, and I don't know that we want to limit it. If somebody lives outside of Loveland, but in a county, or if somebody lives in Berthoud, but maybe is looking to move to Loveland, I don't know that it's necessary to limit it. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. Sarah?
Sorry. Nope. I defer to Sarah, obviously.
Wait. Okay. Jessica, you're good.
Okay. I just want to add that the Loveland Growth Management Area, which I think is also referred to as the donut, might be a group of folks that we should allow to speak. So that being said, I'm also turning off my video because my internet is a little unstable and it makes it easier. So apologies.
And actually, Sarah, I believe Mike was next. Yes, Mike.
I just was going to express my support for Lori's comment. I agree 100%. It's again, unless it's not as if we've had people coming, we've had an issue with more people. And honestly, we wish we'd have more people commenting than we've had so far. So, I mean, until it becomes a problem, I have no idea why we need to have a rule like that. So,
Okay. Sarah?
Okay, so I see where this issue may be coming from, and that is when we open up a Facebook page or do other things or have the comment over the email address. But I don't think here in chambers it would be that much of a problem.
Okay. And then Shane.
I was just going to tag on to what Sarah, I'm the one that kind of brought that up because there are organized groups outside the city of Loveland that are and will probably, as this goes forward and we make decisions, will be here outside of city of Loveland to stir stuff up. Period. I mean, that's where that's coming from. Some of it's from Facebook, some of it's from social media. I mean, there's a group that is organizing, calling our dispatch, chewing out our dispatchers, our paramedics. I mean, it goes on and on and on, and they are not in this city. So that's where I'm coming from on that, just to give you guys a little insight.
Just a, sorry, sort of a side. It sounds like Commissioner Vicks and my microphones aren't working. You can see that they're rated up. I don't need it, but just a technical.
Is that better?
Okay. So I think Commissioner Vick at least.
Okay, so based off of the responses that I'm getting so far, maybe we should wait until maybe it is a problem. If it does become a problem, then we can come back to this and we'll table this item as well. All right, with that, we are going to actually move on to public comment. So is there anyone in the public who has a comment for us?
Good evening. Can you hear me? Is this working? Good evening, commissioners. I'm glad to be here. My name is Bill Jensen, and I live in Loveland. I want to make a comment about access. I want to know if I send an email, if all of you will receive that email equally.
So the only email address there is actually goes to Jeffrey, and then those emails get forwarded to me. So we would be the only two, unless told otherwise. I'm not entirely sure what the provisions are around that, city attorney.
Well, my public comment is that all the commissioners should co-equally receive the same email that I transmit. I don't think there should be anyone filtering or censoring or, arbitrarily choosing who is what.
Okay.
So that's my public comment about access to the commission.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chairman, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Because it makes a very good point. Typically in public meetings, and I've worked with a lot of planning commissions, email comments that come in are added to the minutes of the public record. So if we need to have a motion just to include any email correspondence from the public as part of the record of the minutes, I would think that is a very easy solution to Mr. Jensen's concern, and I would support it.
I'm sorry, just a point of clarification. There are two emails. One goes to the commission itself, which everyone that comes into that will be added to packets.
Sure.
The other one is to the facilitator, goes to Jordan and myself. So everybody would get the emails that go into the Community Trust Commission at City of Loveland email. Those come in a couple different ways. First off, all of them are added to the packet, and any commissioners that would like to be added to that list can immediately have them forwarded to you. So there's a couple different ways that people can receive those. First off, at every single meeting as part of the packets prior to that, or second off, if they want to be added, we would add anyone. And the only reason we're not automatically adding people is to let them make a determination if they want to get those emails or not.
Can I follow up? Sure. What I'm hearing is that if I have a public comment or a comment for the commission, some commissioners aren't interested.
I wouldn't speak for them. I would only say that they will all get all comments in every single meeting packet. So that and if they want them sooner than when the meeting packets are released, they could have the emails automatically forwarded to
I
them.
see. So the email is optional, but it will appear in the packet. And when is the packet distributed?
It's at least 24 hours.
City manager?
Yes, the packet's released Friday afternoon. Sometimes it goes into later than afternoon, but I think we hit Friday afternoon this time, so that's when they do.
Thank you.
Natalie and then Gary, yes.
So if there was a email received at that general number prior to this Friday, it would have been in this packet.
Correct, that is my understanding. Gary?
I think what Mr. Jensen might be referring to is that people in the city of Loveland may have a question for the commission, and it's something that may take a little more study time, and for us to see it at first on Friday afternoon, it doesn't give us time to digest it, do anything with the weekend coming up before our meeting. So I think if an email comes in and it's questioning something or whatever the purpose, giving us something or suggestion for a topic of a future meeting, I think it needs to go to everyone so we're prepared more to talk about it at the meetings.
That might be something that we can revisit and figure out what exactly the protocol is for that, just because we don't want to have an issue where it might come off as a meeting if we're all in the same email. But City Attorney, do you have any comments to that?
I think it is a fair concern that you don't want to begin discussion on the matter before it's presented to the entire commission.
Thank you. All right, do we have any more public comment? Do we have any phone-in or email comment?
Callers, with the, if you'd like to make a public comment, please unmute your line. We could start with caller with the last four digits ending in 1644. If you would like to make a public comment, please unmute. I'm just going to move down the list. Callers with the last four digits 5133. If you would like to make a public comment, please unmute. Is it star, Dan? Is it star? Is it stars? Star 6? Yeah, press star 6 on your phone, please. Caller with the last four digits 2322. If you'd like to make a public comment, please unmute your line. And then Karen Delaney, if you would like to make a public comment, please unmute your line. Chair Pryor, I don't believe I have any public comment on the phone.
All right, well then, if we don't have any more public comment, then we will go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is goals. So I do know that we had, I think that there was a little bit of a mix-up as to, sorry, I have several papers up here, as to the differences between vision, purpose, and goals. So per our ordinance, which I do have a copy of if anybody needs to take a look at it, the vision is to foster a level of trust where the community feels respected and valued, and our purpose is to understand the various issues impacting community trust. That should be separate from our actual goals themselves. So I do want to real quick just go through the 6 areas of focus that I noticed from all the emails that you guys sent me. And those areas included data collection, communication, community relations and events, policies and training, community resources, and litigation. And so I think that it would be good for us to maybe define some actual metrics of how we would measure that. So I'm gonna kind of just leave this open to you. Pass that down to her, please. You're welcome. All right, does anybody have any goals that could coincide with any of those 6 areas of focus? Okay, well, I guess I will start us. Oh, actually, no, that Patrick. And that your.
I just have a point of clarification. Could you repeat those 6 goals again, Chair Pryor?
Yeah, it would be data collection, communications, community relations and events, policies and training, community resources, and litigation. Let me know if I need to repeat that again.
I got that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And there was a hand over here. Natalie, was that you?
Yes, I think, what is it you're getting at? I mean, I think we're kind of running into the same problem as last meeting, is you're not really, it's not clear what it is you want the discussion to be about. So if you're saying, what are the goals of each of these categories? And when we talked, on the phone, it was, pretty, clear, like we have to, figure out within the subcommittee, what we're going to do, I guess, but I don't really know what you mean by goals.
So, yeah. So with each area of focus, that a commission, agreed. And I do have some little notes over here that I can also.
Let me rephrase that.
Yes.
This is a public meeting, and there are people that were part of the conversation, that led up to this. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you made a introduction to how you got to these 6 categories, that you collected information from us privately, we haven't spoken about what they were. You collated it, came up with 6 overlapping areas, and these seemed to be what were mentioned most or something along those lines. I'm not sure. So I guess I'm saying, if you could educate all of us, and if anyone's listening, how these came.
Steps leading up to it.
And then maybe we can, I don't know how we get to talking about the purpose within each one, but if we start there, maybe that's.
Okay. So I guess to take it a step back, at our last meeting, I had asked everyone to send me what areas you guys would like to focus on as a commission. I got responses from all 15, excluding myself, all 15 members, responses from our alternates, and there were 6 areas that overlapped between everyone. And so everyone's responses fell under these 6 categories, and that's how they were developed, was basically just people being in agreement on this is something that we need to focus on, and multiple people agreeing that we needed to focus on it. Is that a better? Okay. And so the purpose of defining the goals is to understand, again, for example, with the communications, what are metrics that would define, hey, we have better communications now with the people of the city, as well as, even within our own government unit. How do we measure that? What does that look like? And that's what all 6 of these are supposed to be. All of these areas of focus is something that we can focus in on and create goals. And what does that look like? How do we define it? Are there specific numbers that are set with that? If we're looking at, say, policies and training, if we go through, let's say we have some revisions we want to make, well, what does the end goal look like? Since we change, if we in theory changed a policy, does that now mean that we have less complaints in the police department? So it's trying to create a numeric value to each area of focus. Yes, Mike.
I think that, to me, there's kind of an element of this that's a little bit premature, in the sense that, part of this, we're a new committee. This is our 3rd meeting. I don't know that all of us are that deeply ensconced in kind of the policy of the police department. I almost think it would be helpful if we could kind of, instead of, I just look at communications and just the first one of the 6 and say, what is that? If we could sit down and understand, what does that mean? What does that entail? What is the police department currently doing? you know, what is it that we'd like to enhance, or what are they doing well, what are they not doing well, and figure out, instead of trying to kind of look at the goals, try to understand what are the questions that we want to ask the police department and the community, and allow those answers to guide some of our recommendations. Because I think we're kind of, we're not doing this in a way that I think is and kind of sequential, I guess. And so that would be my.
Yes, Jeffrey.
Just a point of clarification. Is it, so it sounds like that there's not a concern, at least at this point, with what those 6 are, but the question is, what do we do with those 6? And the proposal is to, instead of establishing goals for each of the 6 areas, it's to understand what questions this group might have within each area. Is that correct?
That would be my approach. Again, I'm one of 16. So.
Okay, well, yes, Shay.
Is that better? So I kind of agree with Mr. Scholl on that I think the 6 things are good, and it defines what we're all going to look at overall, but we probably should dig what about communication in City of Loveland is wrong? What about community relations is wrong? What about community resources? I think that's kind of what he was going with that, if I'm understanding what he's saying. Yeah, what's right and what's wrong. So if we want to focus on each individual thing, then we probably should spend a little time, divide them up, but we have 12, well, we have less than 12 months, but you know what I'm saying, like 2 months on this, 2 months, which is going to get to that subcommittees, it looks like, but I just wanted to echo what he had to say.
Yes, Ron.
I think there, in my view of the trust between the community and the city, regardless of what department it is, one of the key areas is complaints. If a citizen makes a complaint, how is it handled and how is it communicated back? And is there a feeling that I've been heard? And if there was a problem, that it has been resolved. I don't know which of these areas that falls under, but to me, it seems that that's kind of the crux of the entire trust between the citizens and the city.
All right, and then Catherine, I believe you have your hand up on Zoom.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Pryor. One of the concerns that I have is a perception that the culture of the police department is such that officers are not empowered to speak up either on scene or behind the scenes in an anonymous way where they could avoid retaliation, but actually call to the attention behavior that is inappropriate in the field. And I'm wondering where that would fall in. And I also agree with others' comments about how understanding what's going on and learning about what's going on in each of these categories would be a primary goal. That's all.
Thank you. And I think I may not have explained myself very well. I think that I might have actually been on a little bit more of the same page with Mike, where I do think that, yes, we need to define questions for these. For me, it was questions just kind of lead to goals is kind of what my thought process was. But if we would prefer to, instead of just saying, hey, we're going to assign a numeric value to each metric of success, we can go through questions instead. And I still think that we'll settle upon goals if we go about it that way. So, yes, Erin.
I just want to say, as we're diving into some of these, especially policies, procedures, the current communication, whether it's internal or external complaint processes, I agree we'll eventually get to goals. It's about defining the problem first. And sometimes it takes a little bit of work to actually define a detailed problem and then come up with what are the root causes of that? And that takes a little bit of time. I think the question some people are having about which category this falls into is, these are our areas of focus. I don't think we need to make everything fit under one of these 6 categories. but the complaint process, that communications, community relations, or under policies, procedures, training sort of thing. And so I think if we come up with the Karen Gardner, the trust with the complaint process, how people can communicate within the department and externally as well. I mean, those are 3 great starting points that kind of fall into most of the areas that we all decided as a group that we wanted to know about. And again, then we can get to some goals, but I think we have to root out contributing factors when we figure out there is a problem, you know, what can we do about it?
Can I on this side?
Sorry.
Oh, Lori, yes?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in that I have concerns around trust in areas beyond just the police department, and I want to make sure we capture that. I don't know who it was that was speaking ahead of me that mentioned root causes, but I think that's really important. And I think that there may be an underlying root cause that goes across different areas of the city. I see mistrust in a lot of areas. I know this came out of police department actions, but I think it's brought to light a lot of distrust in a lot of other areas too, and I want to make sure we don't lose sight of that as well.
Thank you.
Jordan, I'm sorry, Chair Jordan, Chair Pryor, this is Jessica Schneider. Can I speak for a minute? I'm not sure how to put up my hand. It's not working.
Yes, you can speak.
Okay. I want to affirm what Lori said and what a lot of other commissioners have said. I also want to point out that I think because we have such a limited time to work together and we are such a large body, that prioritizing 1, 2, or 3 goals is potentially the only way that we are going to be able to dig into the systems that have impacted whatever goals we decide to work on together. And if we try to solve all the problems, which, like, trust me, I would love to, we might not get anywhere. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you. Yes, Sarah?
Just to kind of speak to that, but also probably jumping the gun, but the subcommittees, I was feeling like we're going to help with this all meet. We can cover all of our goals through the subcommittees. So maybe not all of us working on all of the problems, but us breaking up and kind of picking our favorites.
Correct. Yes. And so originally, whenever we had approved the agenda items at the last meeting, I was told specifically that we as a group wanted to put goals first. I personally thought that it was a little out of order. I think we should have gone with subcommittees first, going on, seeing if we wanted to do it. I've already gone ahead and broken it down into either 6 or that go to each one of the committees. Yeah? So, okay, then I motion that we move on to subcommittees. Can I get a second? Mr. Attorney, do we have to have a vote for that? No? Okay, perfect. Okay. Yes, Catherine.
I'm wondering if maybe instead of lots of subcommittees, if there's one of those 6 things or maybe 2 of them that might not be the major thing, that's maybe where I would like to see a subcommittee. Otherwise, I'd like to see us all participate in all.
If I could just do a quick time check, we wanted to wrap this particular agenda item up at 7:15, so we've just got about 6 minutes left on it.
Okay, so wait, were you about to? Okay. Yes, I agree. And originally my original thought process was, oh, we'll have 6 subcommittees and we'll have these small numbers so we can get around that meeting of 3 rule. And it was actually brought to my attention by Mike that while that is within the legal bounds, that's not within the ethical bounds. And if we're going to be the trust commission, I agree that we should stick within that. So the 3 subcommittees that I just kind of put together based off of what everyone has said, I was going to have the data collection / litigation kind of all together. So people looking at court documents. Yes, Natalie.
I think the people that articulated the data collection was very different. I understand that involves documents, but the people that were talking about data collection were looking for metrics about, I just didn't see the similarity, but I might be misunderstanding what the data collection stuff was. The litigation category is analytical and witness-based.
Correct, yes, but at the end of the day, it's all just feeding necessary information, whether if it is data-driven or analytical, to the other 2 subcommittees, was the idea behind it. Yes, Mike.
I kind of think that I'm a little hesitant on, we haven't really had a discussion of the subcommittees, and, I think it bears some kind of further discussion as a committee before we kind of move into that direction. I also think, and I said this to you on the phone, in addition, we have staff, and I will say for the record, I worked for the city for 11 years. I no longer work for the city, but there's only one other meeting that I'm aware of where both the city manager and the city attorney sit in on that, and I believe that's city council, if that's correct. I may be mistaken on that. So we have the full attention of the city at our disposal, and if we have information and we have requests that we need, I think it's incumbent upon us as a commission to take advantage of the fact that the 2 most senior officials in the city bureaucracy are here staffing this, along with Justine, who I hold in very high regard as well. And so I think when we're looking at kind of information, I think it's incumbent upon us to ask for the information, and then individually, it's incumbent upon all of us to come to the meetings prepared. And shame on me if I don't take the time to read that material and be briefed and be prepared to ask questions. And so I think to some degree, I'm struggling a little bit with the, where we're going with the subcommittees and why we're setting them up, and it's maybe like, I think the next item, defining trust and kind of defining a little bit more of a clear outcome that we're seeking from this, I think might be a little more directive of where we're headed. So.
Yes, Aaron?
And I wonder, Mike, if I have a little bit of a concern also with setting up committees at this time. I would really like to see us as a group decide on 2, whether it be 1, 2, or 3 top priorities. There is so much on this list. We have Lori that's mentioned other governmental entities, not just LPD. And I just wonder, as a group, can we decide and vote on our top priority, and let's get to work on that, and then 2nd and 3rd. And that might help us at some point with subcommittees. This is just very broad, I feel like, right now. And I just wonder if we can all agree upon, is it the LPD? Is that our number 1 trust issue? Do we feel like within our community right now? Maybe it's your water bill. I get that. But I feel like, just my own personal opinion, I think it's the LPD for me. That's number 1 issue with trust within our community. That's worldwide known right now. And so I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but I would like to really get this down to 1 or 2 things that we can start working on. And then later we can determine if we need to ask City Council for an extension on our charge. If we feel like we've only gotten through these 2 main priorities, we still have a lot of work to do. Then we have something to bring to the table to let them know, but I think we're too broad right now.
I actually think I was on the wage stuff regarding the Karen Gardner thing, and that bleeds into the IA report and the Jensen Hughes, what I call an operational audit. And I think the timing's good because now we got the first tranche of litigation documents. They were very revealing, and then we'll get the Jensen Hughes report, I guess, later this month, and then the IA reports probably after. I don't know, Officer Hop's trial, or I'm not sure when the timing of that is. But my thought was we could actually knock out that first piece in the first quarter, and then we'd have something to report to City Council in the end of January, whenever that timing is. And it's, and then things come in layers after that. But it's sort of to me, it was the focus. It's why we're here. The topic doesn't need to hug up 10 months, and it certainly shouldn't, particularly since we were critical of the process taking too long in the city, so we shouldn't take just as long just to take a peek at it. So, I mean, I can imagine, if they're, cooperative with getting us the documents, which they were, I have a follow-up question about the documents. Then it's just sit down, get the reports, have opinions, have a couple of people in to, perhaps Chief Ticer, perhaps it's kind of a little weird for City Manager Adams to, be both, sitting here as a coworker and then also kind of as a eyewitness to events. But I don't know how we deal with that. And then perhaps, and Mike, I think at one of the last meetings you had suggested, kind of having an outside expert come in and, I was thinking someone that would explain some of these processes to us. I don't really mean the police stuff, because I think that's what the Jensen Hughes things is. But I think like the people in the community need to understand that there were actions by police officers and they were defendants in the litigation. And a couple of them are defendants in criminal matters. And then the city itself was a defendant with its own liability. And it's not clear to me what the settlement is, what the settlement was for. And then, the police department operations come involved in that. But it would be nice to have someone, not me, because I'm, not the most qualified to do it. I understand it, but to kind of explain to people how this works, because it's not something that City Attorney Garcia can, appropriately educate the community on. That's not your role. The community puts that burden on him way too often. I think it's inappropriate. So I just thought, like, literally, we have the documents, we're getting the reports. It's the rest of its homework and then listening to a couple people. And I think we could come out with the end of that issue while there's still snow on the ground. And then we could get on to some other things.
Okay.
That's my suggestion.
And then I apologize, Shane, but Patty's going to be our last speaker for this item, so we can stay on task, or on minutes, excuse me.
I actually, what you just said and what Commissioner Black just said, I would agree with that. I understand that we have maybe a broader group that we're supposed to be looking at, but it would help me, and I think it would help people who are listening to what we are doing if we can focus on the Loveland Police Department and deal with that and move on. And I think a lot of the things that we will get through in dealing with the police department will translate over to, improving trust with the other groups within the city.
Okay. All right. Well, to keep us on schedule, I'm going to move on to defining trust for us. We will table these subcommittees for a later date because it seems as though we need to bring our focus in a little bit more based off of the answers that I've been given. Yes, Jeffrey.
Just to kind of summarize what I heard in that last in the last discussion. Sounds like the idea was that we would move towards using subcommittees in order to allow people to pursue interests that were important to them. And yet we've heard in this discussion that maybe there's a greater interest in selecting one or two main areas of focus and working primarily as a full group. I know you want to move on, and so I think that's fine, but just to tee up to the group, it sounds to me like there's a question. Do you want subcommittees, or do you want to focus on another area? And whether that's a conversation to talk about tonight or answer tonight, or as part of, I just want to just clarify that to me is a question I see you all starting to tee up. Subcommittees or specific focus.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go on to defining trust. I do have a couple of good examples that I was sent just to kind of get you guys, I guess, in the right mindset. We do have Shane's original example, which was the 4 C's: communication trust, competency trust, caring trust, and contractual trust. I did have a good one from Aaron Black, which was the 6 pillars of trust, which is open communication, honesty, dependability, consistency, competency, and time. Jessica Schaus had transparency, respectiveness, unity, service, training. And then Tara just had a really good, just general summary of trust in government can be defined as a citizen's confidence in the actions of the government to do what is right and perceived fair. So I will open this up to you guys so we can, I guess, fully define what trust means to this commission.
And if I can get a point of clarification, is the objective of this particular topic to walk away with a agreed upon definition?
Yes. Yeah. Shane?
So the 4 that I come out of also probably was in the same as Commissioner Black's. So I didn't come up with these on my own, just want to make everybody aware. There was several communities that I researched that went through the same type of issues that we had. So as I researched this, there was the 6 pillars of trust that was, I think, that you brought up, and these 4. And it seemed like the 4 and the 6 kind of meshed. I just picked the 4 because they kind of meshed together. It seems like the 6 fit in the 4, or the 4 could fit into the 6. They're pretty much interchangeable. So that's where I got that. So just so everybody knows, I'm not any genius by any means, and we didn't need to reinvent the wheel. But of those communities that use those 4 and those 6, they turned their situations around. When you read their stories and read what happened, and when I did that research, just in case you guys want to research as well, you have to be very specific in your Google search, because when you just put community trust, you're going to get a whole bunch of bank ads and a whole bunch of other things going on in there. So I typed in communities that had trust issues with their government, or government trust in communities as well. So just if you want to do your own, but that's where that comes from, and I can expand if anybody has any questions on any of those. So,
Mike?
I'm sorry, I just want to make, if you could share those, I'd be welcome a chance to look at those case studies.
Yeah, I can try to re-pull them back up, but yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any? Oh, Catherine, you have your hand up?
Thank you. I would like to ask Commissioner Vick and others, where would culture and accountability fall in these 4 or 6 pillars?
I can answer that. Under the 4, I think it comes into 2, culture and accountability. If I heard you correctly, the caring type of trust is genuine acts of kindness by both parties that build trust over time, which builds people's perceptions on what their government's doing. Some of that involves culture, right? If you have a culture of gossip, a culture of not communicating, a culture of I don't know, nastiness, or or you have a culture of happiness and those kind of things, that all falls under that caring type of trust. And culture kind of encompasses all 4 and all 6. I'll let Commissioner Black comment on that, but culture, if I'll just throw my thought out there, because I like where Catherine's going with this, culture is like turning the Love Boat around in the Suez Canal some days. Just as we're all aware of what culture can do, right? If you're in a good culture, it spawns good things. If you're in a bad culture, it is hard to change, but worth it when it gets done. So
Yes, Aaron?
And I'll say, I believe culture falls under open communication and honesty. You have some houses and families that the culture is everybody lies to one another, everybody keeps secrets, nobody's transparent. And then you have another family and their culture is no, we're open and we're honest and we let the chips fall where they may, and it's a supportive environment. And so I feel like culture falls under those two pillars. Does that help, Jessica? Or Catherine?
It was Catherine. It does. And still not really hearing where accountability falls.
Wait, can you say that last part one more time? I couldn't quite hear you.
Still not hearing where accountability would fall.
Just 1 second. I'll have Shane answer that in just a second, but I do believe Tara had a comment.
So what I meant to send to Jordan, I must not have sent the whole thing, but it had the definition, but then it was kind of like your 4 and 6, I guess, but it broke it down into the two main were good intent and competence. And then under good intent came humanity, which addresses the perception that the government genuinely cares for its constituents' experience and well-being by demonstrating empathy, kindness, and fairness. And then under good intent, the second point was transparency, which indicates that the government openly shares information, motives, and choices related to policy, budget, and program decisions in straightforward language so that everybody can understand what they're actually saying in the policy. And then the second was the competence. And under that was capability, which reflects the belief that the government can create high quality programs and services, and then has the ability to meet expectations effectively. And the other one was reliability, which shows that the government can consistently and dependably deliver high quality program services and experiences to constituents across platforms and geographies. So I think the what you were concerned with would have been under the good intent, which was the humanity of it, and the transparency, which would then reveal the culture. That, anyways, that was it.
Thank you. And then Shane, I hate to do this to you again, but we are running behind on time again. So I just want to ask real quick, are we wanting to adopt one of these? Just nod your head, yes or no. I just need to know if we need to move on or if it's time for us to take a vote and try and figure out if we want to use one of these to define trust. So I'm getting head. All these pillars of trust, since those are the two that we talked about the most.
Yeah, I was, sorry.
Mike?
I was just gonna say, we don't.
No context.
If that was on a piece of paper, maybe we could vote on it. It's hard. I mean, it all seems very similar. I don't mean for me.
If I could.
It all seems fine, and it all seems, I'll vote, for any of them. But I'm not going to remember which word was in the 4 pillars and which was in the 4 things. So.
Okay. Well, I can reiterate that, Mike.
I just have a quick, and I agree with Commissioner Walsh I guess part of it at this point is what does it do to kind of inform to inform our future recommendations at this point? And that's fundamentally what I ask myself, that we're looking at this. And I don't have a problem with that. Whichever rubric or metric of trust commission wants to approve is fine. I just kind of think that maybe it just bears some ongoing discussion a little bit. And I don't know if this then becomes the benchmark or hallmark of our commission going forward. And so I would just, I think it bears more than 7 or 8 minutes of discussion, I guess. And again, and I kind of what put it in some context is how is this going to inform our outcomes and our recommendations?
Right. Catherine?
as I listened to all of those, I saw value in all of them, and each of them is an expression of one or more people in this commission. I see no reason that those aren't our definition of trust. I don't see that we need to have the 6 or the 4 or anything else.
Well, then I guess the question that I have for you then is are you wanting to add them together? I'm just kind of confused as to.
I don't have a way of doing that particularly, but I think they're all valuable, and as they're written, I don't know whether we have one that we want to put on top or how to do it, but I'm not willing to say that any of those responses was not valuable.
Would advance this piece of trust or that piece of trust. And I guess what I was going to ask the chair is it possible, would it be effective enough to be able to, it sounds like people generally like these, but we just don't know that much about them. Is it possible to just periodically and regularly check back in with these as we're developing recommendations?
Yes, Erin?
I still feel strongly that our name is the Community Trust Commission, that we have a definition of trust. I think there is value in that. I think that as community members, they want to know what, as a body, do we feel like that means? And then we might get comment from the public that says, well, I don't understand why you added that. Well, I have a comment regarding that piece that you added. I think it's really important that we do have that definition and it's made public from our entire body. And I think if we like both of these, we can come up with a statement and make a motion that as a body, we accept that as our definition of trust, or we don't and we have to work on it more if we're not okay with that.
Right. Okay. I might propose something. So I'm looking at this list right now, and there are 2 terms that have been repeated: communications and competency. If we combine it all together, there would be, I guess, 8 of these total, which would be caring, contractual trust, open communication, honesty, dependability, consistency, competency, and time. Now, I know that that's a lot to just internalize, and I know it's not in front of you guys right now, and I can repeat it if need be, but would we be willing to add the caring and contractual trust essentially to the 6 pillars of trust and just have those 8, and that would be the outline? Okay, then I'm going to make a motion that that's how we define trust. Second, excellent.
Will you read them one more time?
Yes, I will read them one more time. So our 8 pillars of trust are going to be caring, contractual trust, open communication, honesty, dependability, consistency, competency, and time. Did I miss anything? Are there any comments or questions before we vote on that? Yes, Patty.
One more time?
Sure.
Can I interject before you read?
Yes, Erin.
I would like to add with the caring with intent. I really like the intent.
Caring with
term
intent.
That Tara mentioned earlier, and I think that really falls nicely in with the caring pillar.
Okay. Yes, Tara?
Love that you love that. But transparency, I think, is super important, and I kind of don't like that it's not even listed. Even though it probably falls into it all, I just would like it transparent.
I will, yes, I am curious though, wouldn't that fall under honesty though?
Well, but you can be honest without being transparent. Like,
Fair.
The city could be totally honest with us, but if they're not transparent, I'm not gonna trust it.
Okay.
So that's where I come with it, just how I think.
So honesty and transparency will be. Huh? Ron, yes.
Transparency typically is about communication. So maybe we could have transparent communications.
Open and transparent communication. Okay. Transparent communication. Okay. And then Lori, you have a hand up.
Yeah, I just have a question. The last one was time, T-I-M-E.
Yes, ma'am.
And can somebody elaborate on that one? Because I'm not quite sure what that one means. I don't have an issue with it. I'm just curious. It's just a question.
Aaron's going to answer that for you.
Thanks for the question, Lori. I put time down because my trust has been broken in the past with personal, professional entities, governmental entities, and it takes time to regain that trust. It takes time. Even if you give someone the benefit of the doubt, over time is when that is either shown to you to be fact or not. And so I think time is essential in our community, knowing it's going to take some time for the community to trust us as a commission. And even if we do all of this work, it's still going to take time for the LPD and other governmental agencies. The proof's in the pudding. It takes a while for anybody to either regain trust or to gain trust initially. And that's why I added that.
Thank you. That makes sense to me.
Okay. So I'm going to read off this list again, and then you guys let me know if there's anything else we need to add or adjust. So now we have caring with intent. We have contractual trust, open and transparent communication, honesty, dependability, consistency, competency, and time. Do I need to repeat that for anybody? Yes? Okay. One more time. Caring with intent, contractual trust, open and transparent communication, honesty, dependability, consistency, competency, and time. All right. Everybody got those written down? I don't see any hands up on Zoom. Okay. So, and I'll read them off one more time before we vote, but I would like for us to vote on our definition of trust moving forward. Caring with intent, contraction, transparent communication, and please raise your hand. Okay. Approve this. Okay, it passes by majority rule, and that will be our new trust definition. With public objection? Oh, okay. Okay, so we're going to go on to our next agenda item, and hopefully this one won't take the full 10 minutes, but requests. Are there any additional document requests besides the ones that I already have written down, which I can give, which is criminal statistics report from the city manager, a copy of complaints received by the city and police department and follow-up procedures, and a request for qualifications, pay grade, and disciplinary information for current officers. Natalie?
I have a question about procedure for asking for documents, because I would have a list. And so, but where did you get that list? And
This was emailed responses to me, just people asking, hey, can we request this at the next meeting?
okay. I did not know that was a procedure that we were using. So is that how we do it?
It was just added in the email. We haven't had a developed procedure for that, I don't believe.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, I think we should discuss how we're going to do that. I certainly want those documents and so many more. But I think one of the things we were talking about is, and I think why this is a little still clumsy is because we're mindful of when communications can be had and general responsiveness to emails, you know, like there it's not always. So, you know, how are we going to do that? Because we all are going to want random and multiple documents if it's that wide open, which I don't object to, the more the better. But I think I think we need to know that who's getting theirs first, you know, and who's getting their emails answered, because we don't know that. So the transparency within our commission is key. So who asked for those documents?
That is a great question. I did not make a note of that. Was that Tara? Okay.
Okay, and I think those are.
I want to say that I think all three of these were yours, but I didn't want to say that and be wrong. So.
Okay, and that's a good thing, and I'm really happy that there's responsiveness to it. I asked for the litigation documents in the first meeting, and it required a motion that had to be seconded and voted on in the second meeting. So different standard, different people. Not a good thing.
Well, I wasn't necessarily just demanding from the city attorney. I was more so stating it out loud to see if those were things that we could even get in the first
I know, but I was left with the impression that we had to actually converse and motion and do all that. So what I'm learning, and I prefer it not to, although I think you guys might be inundated with documents. You know, so how are we going to do that? Because there's a lot of documents people are going to want.
Well, I apologize for messing up the
I don't mean,
procedures on that one.
I say it, I like to demonstrate in my presentation. But it was, and Tara, I'm really glad you asked for those documents. Well, I think that if I put my whole.
Tara, before you, Mike actually was going to be next. Sorry.
Tara, go ahead.
Sure.
She can take my.
Okay, Tara.
I'm so sorry. No, I had asked for some of those in the first meeting too. And actually I emailed them a ton because I have a brain injury. So I forget things, and I kept forgetting to ask for the conversation for the whole committee. And so I just emailed it to Jordan because then he could bring it up in a meeting knowing I needed to.
Yeah,
that's why that happened. I just didn't want you to think Jordan was picking me over anybody else.
I'm saying we should have a discussion about this because I think people want, I mean, that's like 90% of what we're doing. And it's not, I'm not like, oh, I can't believe Tara got her document request before mine. I really don't care about that. But I do care that we have a procedure and that we all know what it is. I was under the impression that you guys didn't want to be responding to a lot of emails all week since you have other stuff going on, and I expect, you know. So, and there's nothing wrong with you doing that, Tara. I think that we all should know what our plan is and how we're going to do it. Otherwise, like, everyone's going to be asking for the same documents. There's going to be overlap. You're going to have to spend time sorting through who did what. So I guess I would just recommend a little bit more organization to it. And I personally did not mind having to make a motion for this document request because then it was recorded and
carries the full weight of the board.
Right. Mike?
Yeah, I just kind of agree with Commissioner Walsh. I think I'm a little bit frustrated with this meeting, the fact that, we're rushed through kind of defining trust in 8 minutes. We're rushing through now documents in 10 minutes. And I think we have to just understand that within the context of public meetings and commissions and public engagements, process is very important. And then we can't just overlook process and just say, well, we'll just do it. We'll send an email, because I think it does start to breed a little bit of distrust and I think frustration. And so I think if there's documents and things and information that we want to share, we should have a discussion about how we're going to do that and having a consensus or an agreement or a motion as to what process we're going to use, either to share information like his case studies that he brought up earlier that I'd like to look at. I have a document that I'd like to share that's not necessarily timely, but informative. And also some of the other litigation and court documents that I think Commissioner Walsh and some statistics and, that information, like I'd like us to approach this a little bit more thoughtfully and open, as opposed to just kind of rushing through in the interest. I mean, I can stay a few minutes later that bears some additional discussion, but I'm just feeling a little bit uneasy with the approach we're taking. Getting the right information.
Send a quick email, but then having it in our notes and then bringing it up at the meeting and clarifying it and then getting confirmation. That's what I think another thing we're missing, because I also at the last meeting specifically asked for certain things and then there's no confirmation. So it's just kind of like,
So basically adding all of our document requests to the end of the agenda.
yeah.
Okay.
And then asking directly and receiving confirmation.
Okay. Yes, Natalie?
If you could just clarify that, can you make that request? How do we know you made, I'm confused about how we actually do that because
to add to our transparency, right? If it came through in an email, it just has to show up on our list. There's 16 of us, and that's a lot for us to all bring to the table every time and then discuss. So I think having an email is handy and nice, and we have the ability to share with all of us instantly.
can we do that? I thought that was a.
If it goes to which email is that? I wrote it down.
The CTC facilitator.
No, so if it goes, and then it can be shared to all of us, right? So.
We just cannot reply to said email, but Jeffrey can send that out to all of us.
So we could see these things and see what requests are happening, and that way we know what they're coming up, and then we know we all could approve them and ask directly if it would be possible, and then receive confirmation and know that's coming up at the next meeting or know that will be coming out. I think that would help a lot of us with some just.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mike.
I kind of wish that we could just, instead of kind of overcomplicating it, just allow for individual, kind of, I think, to build off what Commissioner Mayer was saying, if we have specific information requests, if we could funnel them either to Jeffrey or to you, and then we have a list, we have an agenda item, we all have a chance to discuss, understand the need, and then vote as a commission and speak from one voice. Because I think, again, the process is really important, and I think the ability to speak with a unified voice is going to be really important. And so I think if we had something, or if we could agree that if there are documents or information that we feel is lacking or we need, that we can funnel them to you, that those will be added to an agenda, the consolidated, I think, in a readable way, obviously, and that we can have a full discussion, and we can vote as a commission to say, we are requesting the city manager, the city attorney, or whomever provide us with this information by date certain, and then have discussion items related to that on future agendas, because we received a whole tranche of litigation. We're not even discussing that. What was in those documents, what was said, what's been done. I have some questions about, obviously that some of the documents that we've had that were provided to us, and I know we'll have other opportunities with the other audits and things that are taking place. But I just think we have to be mindful of how we manage that process and realize that we do have time. We will have future meetings, and I just think it's important that we have a good understanding of or agreement on the process.
Chair Pryor, this is Jessica Schneider.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me? I would like to yes and what Mike just said. I agree that process and procedure is incredibly important. I also see that we're running down the clock a little bit. I would like to make a point of privilege to ask for a motion that our community and the residents of Loveland, who we are supposed to be serving on this commission, have, I should start by saying I'm very appreciative that I can see all of you today, and you can, well, you could see me until my internet was a little less stable. But I think that, you know, accessibility to comment in public comment and to observe the commission and our decision-making should be available to the public, and it should be available to the public, you know, with several days ahead of time. And so I would like to make that motion if that's okay.
Can you clarify that motion just a little bit for me, please?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Will you clarify that for me just a little bit, please?
Yes, I guess I would like to make a motion that the Community Trust Commission has accessibility via video for commissioners, and that the public can also observe what we're doing via video, call in for comment if they would like, and that information about how to do that is accessible, you know, at least a week ahead of time.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So she's asking if we can please basically do what we're doing, but do it sooner.
Okay. I think I'm on the right page. Yes, Gary?
Are we finished with our discussion on how we do documents? Just somebody will mention something and we jump off different topics. I still have comments on the documents.
Right.
Because if we have not yet defined the top 2 or 3 items that we want to look at, all these documents are just dreaming up. They're out there and there's no focus to those. We need to pick those top things we're going to look at and then request the documents that relate to that. We don't need, you know, a dump truck full of documents that don't apply to our focus. So I think we're getting the cart ahead of the horse here by spending so much time talking about documents. We need focus first, then we can ask for the documents that come with that.
Thank you. Okay. One moment. So Jessica, I think we're going to push your question for video to the next agenda item. I'm also going to request from the commission that we extend this meeting an additional 15 minutes. Is that the correct verbiage?
That is correct. You'd need a 2/3 vote.
Okay, 2/3 vote, which is 11. Got it. Okay. Those who are in favor of extending the extending the meeting an additional 15 minutes, please raise your hand. 10. Oh, Lord. Okay. Whew. All right. So by skin of a chicken's teeth, it looks like we'll be extending our meeting an additional 15 minutes. So now we can finish discussing procedures and then also have our city manager come up, talk about the video options for you, Jessica, and we can go from there. We got off track. We were talking about the procedures needed. Yes, Jeffrey.
I think what I heard was that the suggestion was that anybody who has a document request could send them to either Jordan or myself. We would list them all in the agenda and then discuss them as a group in the meeting. And you all as a group can determine whether you would make an official or formal request for those documents.
Yes, Aaron.
I just want to echo.
Is your mic on?
Alternate drive. Again, we can ask for the truckload of documents and we can decide that process. I think that's a good idea. And yet without a primary focus, a secondary focus, I completely agree with him. And that will help steer us in the right direction of what documents that we need.
Correct.
But
But just to avoid the issue that we just had where I accidentally brought up Tara's stuff from last meeting out of turn, we just want to make sure that our procedures are set in stone. Was that what you were going to say, Sarah? Okay. Ron?
Would there be a problem in sharing those requests that are sent to you and Jeffrey with the city manager or the city attorney, whoever is appropriate, so that when it comes up on our agenda, they at least are prepared to then respond to whether or not those documents are readily available, whether it would take some time, rather than it being the first time they've heard of it. Although I guess they would see it on the agenda, but my concern is that they be prepared to tell us how easy it is.
So I guess the question you're asking is, can you, when you send those requests to Jeffrey and I, that you can also CC either Moses or Steve Adams, correct?
Well, actually, I was thinking of you then forwarding it to them rather than us having another channel.
Fair. Okay. Is that allowed?
Chairman Pryor, I would say that, we do get to see those emails, so we'll have a general sense of what is coming across. From my perspective, I will not take action until the commission as a body tells me that they want something done.
Excellent. Okay. So then, Jeffrey, if you will, can you list off the procedure one more time for everyone? And city attorney, this particular procedure, is this something that we need to vote on, or is this something that we can all just kind of internalize and move about our time with?
Either is fine.
Okay, perfect.
So all Community Trust Commission members would send any preferred document requests to Jordan and myself. We would list every request that we get in the agenda. And then once the next meeting comes up, you all can discuss each one of those requests, and you would make a request to the city as a group for the documents you want. And it sounds like you'll see those, the city will see those emails. We'll forward those as well.
Perfect. Okay. Yes, Mike.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, city manager.
I'm just going to ask a question because I think somebody will probably ask it later. Will you take requests for information at the meeting itself?
Say that one more time for me.
Will you take requests for documents at the meeting itself? Because right now you're talking about people emailing to you, you email them to me. What if somebody has a request at the meeting itself, or would that wait till the next meeting?
Yes, we would leave that up to group discussion, correct? Okay. Yes, Mike.
Just an add-on, and I will promise I'll be quick. There's another kind of sharing of documents, I think another level that I just wanted to throw out there. There's documents that are in the public realm that I think we can share, I think, through email or through distribution, one of which is I had reached out to a criminal justice professor, faculty at CSU in the subsequent, and he pointed me in the direction of the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. It's a document that I think is it's just been very informative for me about different suggestions and what makes up best practices and what police departments should be doing. And I think for me, being able to share this and I would just welcome the chance for other folks to kind of peruse it, because I think when we're starting to talk about benchmarks, about what our expectation is, it's documents like these can, I think, be very informative. And I could read a few, but obviously it deals with kind of training, with dealing with special needs populations, and actually having processes in place to deal with incidents, and different recommendations and different approaches. So I'd like to be able to share other information as well, I think, and I know I'm sure there's other members that will do their own research, I think, that I would value from, and I would welcome the chance. So if we're okay with it as a commission, I don't want to necessarily need to do a motion, but I'd like to be able to filter those documents through the chair as well, the tip for distribution, as long as I think it's just clear that, whatever people send, we distribute to the whole committee, so it's fair, and we're not, making any judgment, but I do think we could value from that. So thank you.
Yes, Shane?
I'm going to step on Jeffrey's toes a little bit. So listening to this discussion, and these are all great ideas. Our commission, or whatever the thing that the city council says, it says first the Loveland Police Department and then other departments after that. So if I'm understanding correctly, here's how I'm going to summarize it as a commissioner. Our first agenda is to fix the trust issue with the Loveland Police Department and then move on to other departments. Within that, we have now defined the 8 pillars of trust that we're going to define that through. And we can even break it down into the communications of the understanding about that. Those documents and all the document requests then for us trying to figure out how to fix the trust from LPD to the community then can be emailed, right? And at any time, any commissioner can email the rest of the committee, unless I'm out of line on that, of whatever documents that are out there, correct? That all puts it all together. So I'm just trying to put this into my head. Our main focus first, LPD trust, measure it against the 8 pillars of communication. Our next meeting item after we hear the stuff on the video should be all about, okay, here's our first thing, LPD, how do they fit this? What documents do we need? Et cetera, et cetera. We all do our homework. We come back prepared. Am I understanding all this correctly?
Yeah, I would say so. Jeffrey? Yeah. Perfect.
Copy that.
Although if we share information.
That would be a question for the city attorney. Do you mind reiterating that for him, please?
Yeah, I just, we're talking about sharing information that's within the public realm through the chair and facilitator for distribution to the other members, just as reference or for further discussion.
Chairman Pryor, I would note that I think it is a good idea to share information and that you can distribute that information. One of the things that you will come across is that the public is interested in transparency and they will want access to those same documents. So the question will be, how does the public access those documents as well?
Sarah?
Could we do it like on the page where we found our agenda and stuff, or some kind of drive folder where it's all together?
On the Civic Web?
So that these are the documents we're reading, here are the reports that we've read and are all, yeah.
So I would
That's something that's
to our IT.
Just a point. I think, yes, I think that would happen through the CV Web by our process that we've all agreed with. That once if we share as a commission, we come through, everybody approves it, it's going to be on for public access.
Okay.
It'll be in our meeting minutes, right? If I'm understanding that correctly. Anything that we approve, any access that we want, all that goes into our meeting minutes, which is all public access, correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
I think that all of the requests that you make here formally would definitely be part of that. But I think the other part would be if one of you wants to share some document with each other over email, and I think it sounds like the question is, how is that then publicly shared? And I'm wondering if we could also add that to the agenda, because it would be shared by a link, I would presume.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that's what Sarah was talking about, is essentially at the bottom of the agenda, whenever you go onto Civic Web, there's always a bunch of hyperlinks that go to, the minutes and everything else. And we would just hyperlink it to whatever the PDF file is to whatever document we're wanting to put out to the public.
So
Yes, Aaron.
then that's your job and Jeffrey's job to make sure that's linked to the city's website? Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
So it should be shared then.
Yes. Gary? I don't see a hand up. Jessica, did you have a comment? I think that's just because she's recording. Okay, then, yes, Mike.
Violating my 2-comment rule. I apologize. I also, at some point, and maybe this could be a future agenda item because I know we need to move on, but in addition to documents, there are kind of people that I think I'd like to speak that I would want to invite to speak. I mean, we've had that discussion, but I think it's important that we hear from people directly and allow them to kind of speak to us. So I would, in addition to kind of documents, I do think that hearing directly from some of the people that are affected, I think would be, I would ask that we put that on the next agenda to have that discussion. So that's my request.
And then for the sake of time, we are going to move on to the next agenda item, which will be City Manager Steve Adams, and he'll be presenting kind of our video options moving forward. Yes, Tara?
So now this is the third week that I wanted that. And the first, so I'm just wondering, we're still not going to ask for any of those documents? Confirmation. Okay. So,
yes. City Manager?
You ready?
Did someone else have their hand up over here?
Okay. So I'm going to hand out something because some of you have it and some of you don't. So, Mr. Chair, if it's okay. So I wanted to this was in your packet. Some of you have your packet, some don't. So I know it's quick and you get things here, but what we wanted to do is respond back to some of the information, requests for information that you asked for at the last meeting. And Sarah, you indicated that you have an unsatisfied request. If it's not in here, I need to know what it is, because I think we have listed a whole bunch of things. I know Janelle and Justine have been very busy satisfying requests. So if there's one we missed, we certainly didn't do that intentionally, and would like to know what it is.
No, that's okay. Like moving forward though, so we have confirmation each time, I think for all of us, that'll be better in our procedure. So we ask for something and you guys say, yes, this is what it is, boom, then we can move forward.
Yeah. So what I was asked for by motion was to provide a update on the potential different ways to broadcast meetings. I didn't commit to anything, but in 2 weeks, we did upgrade the system to where we are today. This is where our city council is in some regards, not on channel 16. So, yes.
I'm sorry, just a very quick, I know we extended the meeting, so we only have 8 minutes left.
Okay, I'm ready. So what the background was is to look at remote meeting access, create video recordings was a question, offer video participation, live broadcast of commission meetings on city channels, including channel 16 and platforms. So the first, we've already done that. We didn't wait for anything. I didn't have to, because in the ordinance it says if I can provide it, I will, and I can, so I did. B is create video recordings of commission meetings for public access, and it talks about how that might work in a process for that. It does take more staff time, and it takes staff recommendation of it's possible. My feeling is, in order to do this, since we do not record any other board or commission meeting, this would take city council approval to approve going forward. So right now, we're not there. We actually have a member recording right now, so it's being recorded. So if there was some more desire to do something here, that was where we were on that one. Video participation for public comment. Again, our council nor any other board or commission has that right now. Council does not have people come online with video. And so from our perspective, we have the possibility of people who could have made comments tonight. They were on, we could see them, but we did not receive comments from them. Our recommendation was not to follow that. And then the live broadcasts of the commission's meetings on city channels, including 16 and DBIT streaming platforms. Right now, this council chamber will shut down sometime the middle of December, and we have a new system being installed. And so I know Justine and Dan are very happy about that. Part of that is looking at our live streaming and our capabilities here in the council chamber anyway, and those will come out early next year, and so we'll be down for a couple weeks on that part of it. The time period in order to do that, to have people man cameras to zoom in and out, to broadcast us on channel 16, we actually have a person downstairs when we're actually recording and presenting our meetings in a public forum here for planning commission or city council. usually Dan or some IT person is around. We have a person downstairs from Justine's group who's actually managing the meeting, recording, I say recording, doing the production of zooming in and out of whoever's talking and all those kind of things. Again, this is pretty time sensitive and tough for us to do with our current staff of people. And we would have to go out and do some kind of broadcast team or find some private entity that can do it for us. And again, this would take council approval to do because of the resource needs. So you asked, that's short, quick. And I want to make sure I have time to do two things. So you're gonna as being right down there. So we need to amend the minutes to reflect she was here on the November 1st meeting. Okay. Well, it has to be a motion because it was posted wrong.
I move to amend the minutes from the November 1st meeting to show that Catherine was here.
I second. By show of hands for approval.
Thank you for correcting that. I apologize for that.
Okay.
Sorry, Catherine. Okay, so this is my quick presentation. I know we're pressed for time, but we have a platform right now, and we're able to do that right now. So that's what we would propose at this point to do.
Okay, I mean, it seemed to have worked well today. I do know that there are individuals who are really wanting this to get broadcasted live, but I do understand that there's a lot of constraints that go with that. Just because we're running out of time, this might be something that we can reflect on over the next couple of days. And, you know, if there are any additional options or avenues that people want to look at, they can. But I do think that at least for the time being, as a remote participant tonight. Oh, okay.
I have a quick.
Yes, Mike.
So, City Manager Adams, so the note in here, you said this can be broadcast, or we can post on the city's YouTube channel. Do we have maybe I'm unclear. Will we have the capability just to video and post these? I mean, obviously, I understand the limitations of doing it in real time and the challenges. But is it possible that could we request that these meetings just be posted on the city's YouTube channel when done?
Well, right now there's nothing to post on YouTube. We're not recording this or videoing it.
But I was just in the future, if we do go for, I mean, maybe I misheard, but that you said there's going to be some improvements where we could have opportunities to video, or there'll be technology that would allow us to tape these meetings and that we could just post them on the.
Yeah, the ability to do that, we think will enhance in some months from now. And I'm not sure exactly when that piece, or there's two pieces of technology here. I'm about at the end, and that's why I have my IT Chief Information Officer here today to talk about it, as well as Justine. I'm not sure which one can, but more is coming on that. And that's what it's written down here for, because we're still working on the details. We've got a contractor we're working with now. But the point there is then at some point, somebody would have to be manning cameras, videoing, live streaming with a camera and all that. We still have the same problem as I've got staff committed to be doing something that no other board or commission is doing live. So
I just want to know that we have 1 minute left.
That's right.
Adams, City Manager Adams, I am recording this Zoom. This is Commissioner Schneider. I presume that the city's Zoom account is going to be, able to hold this recording. Can that be uploaded or given to me to upload?
No. Well, I think our comment is an individual recording that it's not from the same location as we are. And right now, as I mentioned, our storage space is very limited right now on space for storing video. And that's why we're trying to avoid doing it right now until we get some more information and systems done.
Real quick, just because, we have about 30 seconds before 8:15. Are we allowed to extend minutes a second time, or is that against the rules? We can? Okay. Okay, then I'm going to motion that we extend the meeting another 15 minutes so we can finish up the last of the video work as well as hopefully figure out a couple of things for the next agenda. Can I get a second for that? Okay. By show of hands, those who want to extend the meeting by another 15 minutes, please raise. 8, 9, 10. All right, it looks like that did not pass. So, meeting adjourned.
Did he get, when Shane summarized, because that's really the agenda,